Some breaking news here on the San Francisco 49ers report, and this is not the news that I wanted to pass along to Niner fans out there, especially considering how San Francisco has started the year 3-0, winning all of those games in one-score matchups, but also with how San Francisco won that game yesterday against Arizona and how this defense really has started to round into form. A defense that is playing so many young players, and we expected them to be pretty solid at the end of the year, but they are way ahead of the curve. But now, San Francisco going to be without their best defensive player, not named Fred Warner. Unfortunately, this is the news, and I got to be honest, it sucks. Nick Bosa suffered a season-ending torn ACL in that Niners victory over Arizona, and this is our worst fears coming true. Heading into the year, we knew that this Niners team as a whole couldn't really afford to have injuries to their star players because they're a little bit thin. The depth isn't what it's been in years prior, and San Francisco is leaning on all the aforementioned young players to really be marquee players. But also, Nick Bosa is just a special player. And so this is a really difficult player to replace considering how other teams have to game plan against him, prepare for him, and what he does for the defensive unit under defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. And we had a feeling that this was maybe coming, but all of us were holding out hope that it wasn't going to be an ACL. Shoot, give us a sprained ACL. Give us some type of knee injury where Bosa might miss some time and be back at some point this year. But we are not going to see number 97 in a Niners uniform for the remainder of 2025, and we won't see him until 2026. Even when the 49ers get a huge victory like they did yesterday at the buzzer, Eddie Pinheiro, game-winning field goal, one of their best players, team captains, and one of the best, finest players in the sport of football is lost for the season. And injury misfortune continues to really kill this organization. They have been top 10 in injury rate every year since Kyle Shanahan became the head coach in 2017. The only year that they weren't top 10 in injury rate, 2023. They made it to the Super Bowl. Outside of that, this has been a team that with star-level players, depth pieces, really anybody on the roster, they've suffered a lot of injuries, and it's just really unrelenting to a point where you feel as though in the game of football, at the NFL level, shoot, in all of professional sports, it feels like San Francisco, to a certain degree, is cursed. And another concern that I have here with Bosa, it's the injuries starting to rack up and accumulate here, especially with his history suffering ACL tears. This is his third ACL tear in his football career. He had a partial right ACL tear when he was a senior in high school in 2015. He had to get surgery on that. Then in year two, after he was drafted in 2019, early in the year, on the road at MetLife Stadium, he suffered a torn ACL in his left knee. And now here in week 3 of the 2025 season, it is a right ACL tear for Bosa. The 49ers, of course, made that massive investment in him going into the 2023 season after he won Defensive Player of the Year, at the time giving him $34 million average annual value, which made him the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL at that point. And was he the same player in 2023 after he signed that deal that he was in 2022? No, the sack numbers went down, but the pressure numbers and the quarterback hit numbers, his overall impact was still there. He didn't quite have the sack numbers, but his impact was certainly felt. So the sack numbers went down 2022 to 2023. They went down again in 2024 because he had an injury, missed a few games, and now here we are in 2025, and he has another injury. This one obviously severe because it causes him to miss the rest of the year. So he is starting to become a pretty injury-prone player. And you worry about how this impacts the longevity of his career. Nick Bosa is a freak. He takes great care of his body. He is a physical specimen. And so you know he's going to do everything that he can to get back on the field and get back very quickly. But he is a player who uses some twitch, uses some power in order to win at that defensive end spot. So you do have to wonder which type of player he is going to be once he comes back from this injury. Now, there's a lot to talk about here on this show. Where do the Niners go from here? We'll take a look at some Bosa production here. But a reminder to subscribe to the channel. When breaking news happens, we cover it here on the show, and we give you in-depth insight and analysis. So hit that sub button. Let's get to 172,000 subscribers. Early in the game yesterday, this was the play where Bosa got hurt. First quarter against Arizona. And here you can see that he is double teamed by the Cardinals offensive line. And he's just not in a great position here. And you could tell at the time, this could end up being serious because he didn't really have a stable foundation beneath him. And you see how that left leg is outstretched and his body is going one way. His momentum is going another. Bosa went down immediately. And he was able to walk off the field, but very gingerly. Then he went to the sideline and he laid down, had his hands over his eyes, and it didn't look good there. Then he went into the medical tent. And he looked into the crowd, and the broadcast got a shot of him looking up into the crowd, I imagine at a family member, significant other, a friend, giving the thumbs down. And Nick Bosa is a player who knows his body well, and with his history of ACLs, he probably had a feeling at that time, this isn't good, because of what he felt, which is why he reacted the way that he reacted. And what happened after the game was a little bit interesting, because there was a little bit of a sliver of hope here. Because Kyle Shanahan did say the tests on the sideline indicated that the ACL wasn't torn. But context is important there. The sideline test is not an MRI. It's the training staff feeling the ACL. And so at that point, they didn't think that he tore his ACL. But you can't determine if a ligament is torn until you get imaging done. So Bosa got that MRI. The further imaging was needed. It came back, and it revealed a clean ACL tear. There is a little bit of a silver lining here. No other ligaments appeared to be damaged for Bosa. So unlike Brandon Ayuk, when he suffered the ACL, MCL, and other structural damage, this just looks to be a clean ACL tear, and that'll help his recovery in addition to the timeline. What's also unfortunate is the start that Bosa got off to this year. Won the game in week 1 against Seattle with that power rush on Abraham Lucas where he put the right tackle into the lap of Sam Darnold, causing the fumble. And then against New Orleans in week 2, second to last drive of the game, he had that sack of Spencer Rattler. That's what you pay him to do. Be a closer. And once again, he was grading out extremely well. Overall PFF grade of 86.3, pass rush grade of 80.3 in really just 2 games. Because you can't count the third game because he went out so early. 10 pressures, 6 hurries, 2 hits, 2 sacks, a forced fumble on 70 pass rushing snaps. And I know that a lot of people like to focus on the lack of sack numbers. And again, since he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2022, the sack numbers have gone down. And 2023, 2024, and now 2025, they will be on a steady decrease. But I kind of look at sack numbers sometimes as wins and losses for a pitcher, right? It doesn't tell the full story. You look at ERA, you look at WHIP, you look at strikeouts per 9. How effective is that pitcher? How effective are pass rushers if they don't always get sacks? And Bosa, since he came into the league, has been one of the most productive pass rushers in the NFL. I believe since 2019, he's number 4 in sacks in the NFL. And his pressures are number 1 during that time frame. And still in 2023, 2024, and here in 2025, still one of the highest graded pass rushers in the game. You know, he wins Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. The grade is 90.9, third. 2023, 92.7. So he was graded higher in 2023, despite less sacks, second. Even last year when he missed those 3 games, fourth. His pass rush grade, last 3 years going into this year, third, and fourth. His pressure numbers, he actually had more pressures in 2023 than in 2022 when he won DPOY with 95 over 90, and then still last year, missing those 3 games, he was 6th in pressures. And then his sack numbers. 2022 PFF doesn't count half sacks, so he had 18.5. He got 19. That was number 1. 2023, 14. That was 10th. Even last year, he had 10. Again, They don't count the half sacks. He technically had 9.5, depending on which database you look at. That's still ranked 15th, and he missed those 3 games. So the Niners are losing one of the most valuable players, not just on their roster, but across the entire National Football League. Now, coming up next, what do the Niners do from here? Who has to step up on this roster? Who is a player who San Francisco could trade for? That's coming up just around the corner. But today's show, sponsored by our friends at Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Very simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. This is the best way to get action on sports all across America. Prize Picks puts their users first. All withdrawals, fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more. And this is also important to note that Prize Picks does something special. They offer injury reboots. So if one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. So if you had Nick Bosa, let's say, more or less than a half sack, he gets injured in the first half, they won't dock you for that. So download the app today, use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Good Monday Night Football matchup tonight. It's Ravens, Lions. Let's go with Amon-Ra St. Brown, more than 71.5 receiving yards. He went off in week 2 against the Bears. More for Lamar Jackson on the 233.5 passing yards. And then Tyler Loop, more than a half field goal made. That's always a sneaky selection that I like. New users, play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups. Real money sports action made easy. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So with Bosa, right? This is a player who the 49ers could not afford to lose. San Francisco may have survived in one game against Arizona without him, and they played pretty well after the Bosa injury. Now, the pressure numbers weren't the same on Kyler Murray as compared to when Bosa was on the field the first 2 games, but San Francisco's defense did rally, and they did play pretty well. But the big question here is, can the 49ers survive without Bosa long-term and for the rest of the year? That's going to be very difficult. The internal options, the Niners don't have a lot of depth at the defensive end spot. Bryce Huff, Mykel Williams, Yetur Gross-Matos, Sam Okuwanu, the defensive ends on the roster right now. What's unfortunate about this Bosa injury is that he was playing defensive end, he was playing defensive tackle, and then we also saw Mykel Williams, Yetur Gross-Matos, Sam Okuwanu playing defensive end and defensive tackle as part of that NASCAR package. Now you're not able to do as much of that by losing Bosa. And then additionally, the 49ers rookies are really going to have to step up. Mykel Williams, CJ Weston, Alfred Collins. You're going to have to fill in for the loss of Bosa from everywhere. And it's going to be a collective effort to really try to replace his production. Robert Saleh, he's been in his bag to start the year. He has done a tremendous job in his reunion with the Niners as this team's defensive coordinator. He's going to have to scheme up ways to generate a pass rush. Without Bosa, you're not going to be able to rely on getting home with just 4 as much. You're going to have to run more twists and stunts. You're going to have to blitz a little bit more. And that's with linebackers. That's with corners. That's with safeties. You're going to have to get creative with trying to generate that pass rush. A trade candidate for San Francisco is Trey Hendrickson. Joe Burrow is out until December. The Bengals did not give Hendrickson a contract extension. They redid his deal for 2025, and they gave him more money for this season. Plus, he wasn't guaranteed on his previous contract. I can't imagine that without Joe Burrow and Jake Browning as the quarterback, the Bengals are going to be competitive. And if they didn't sign Hendrickson to a long-term deal, are they willing to trade him away and sell at the NFL trade deadline? If the Niners pass rush is struggling, they're still winning, and the Bengals are not winning, and they try to recoup some assets back for Hendrickson instead of not getting anything for him if he were to walk in free agency. Hendrickson, a little bit older, on the other side of 30, but in the previous 2 years, nobody has had more sacks, 17.5 the last 2 years, And in 2025, he's off to another really good start. He's been one of the top pass rushers in the game. Overall PFF grade of 89.9. That ranks 4th among 148 pass rushers. His pass rush grade, 90.6. That's 3rd. He has 14 pressures. That ranks 2nd among defensive ends. He has 2 sacks. That's inside the top 10. In addition to 8 quarterback hurries, which ranks 9th. That is a player who, if I'm John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, I'm calling the Bengals to see what the cost is. Because San Francisco has shown they can compete here in 2025. Can they compete long-term without Nick Bosa? We'll see over the next few weeks. But if it becomes clear that they're missing Bosa and they can't continue to move forward without him and they need to make a trade for a player, I'm calling the Bengals about Hendrickson, and then I'm figuring out the rest a little bit later. It helps if you want to sign Hendrickson to a long-term deal because Mykel Williams can play defensive end and defensive tackle, and you're not sure when Bosa is going to be able to come back anyway in 2026. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hopefully I gave you all a very thorough breakdown. Appreciate all of the support, and we'll catch you soon.